Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we're going to explore a really haunting disappearance from 1979. It gripped a Texas community for decades, full of rumors, speculation, and then, well, the truth emerged in just about the most unexpected way possible.
It's a truly compelling story.
Yeah, we're going to unpack the case of Helen Ruth Holladay. It's tragic, but also fascinating in how it finally resolved.
It really is. It's a classic cold case in many ways, but the resolution is, well, it's pretty unique. As we've seen in the sources, it really shows how sometimes the key to an old mystery is completely outside, traditional police work.
Absolutely. When you look at the materials, you get this immediate sense of Granbury, Texas back in '79. Seems like a pretty ordinary town, right? Quiet by the lake.
Mm-hmm.
But it was about to get wrapped up in this mystery that would just cast this long shadow for, over 3 decades?
Yeah, a very long time.
And at the center of it all was Helen Ruth Holladay. Now, the sources mentioned she was either 43 or 45 when she vanished.
Right, and that small discrepancy itself is kind of interesting, isn't it?
It is. It sort of hints at that fog of information that often surrounds these cold cases right from the start.
Exactly. Witness recollections aren't perfect. Initial records might be a bit sparse. The shock of it all can make details hazy. It sets the tone, really.
And her disappearance wasn't just, a minor news item. The sources say it became the town's biggest unsolved puzzle, like a constant whisper.
Yeah, because she wasn't a stranger. She was known in the community.
Right. And here's what makes Helen's story stand out so much. It was filled with suspicion, almost from day one, but absolutely no answers for 35 years.
35 years. It's hard to fathom.
And then it gets solved, essentially, by nature, a massive drought, something totally outside anyone's control.
Which is incredible.
So what we're going to do today is walk through the timeline as best we know it from the sources, look into all those rumors that swirled around Granbury for so long, and then really unpack the astonishing way this story concluded.
It really makes you think about how these old secrets can eventually surface. Sometimes it's not a detective, not new tech. It's the environment itself giving up what it held.
Okay, so let's start with Helen herself. Who was she? What was going on in her life right before she disappeared in late 1979? The sources give us some clues, right?
Yeah, and understanding the backdrop is absolutely crucial here. It sets the stage for, everything that followed the theories, the suspicion. So Helen Ruth Holladay from Granbury, Texas, aged 43 or 45, as you said, and the sources emphasize she was, quote, local talk of the town.
Local talk of the town. What does that suggest to you?
You mean she wasn't invisible? She's part of the fabric of the community. People knew of her, so her absence would have been felt very quickly and talked about.
Makes sense.
But more importantly, the sources are pretty explicit. She was reportedly facing some significant personal difficulties around that time.
And not just general stress.
No, apparently not. Friends, neighbors. They recalled real tension in her marriage. This detail is huge, obviously. It immediately points to conflict, serious conflict in her life right before she vanished.
Which police would zero in on immediately.
Instantly. It's the kind of detail that shapes the entire initial investigation.
So she was known, integrated into the town, but dealing with this intense marital trouble. And that leads us to the timeline around her disappearance.
Right. The last known sighting. There's a slight variation here, too, which, again, is common in cold cases. Some sources say around November 1st, 1979. Others mention September 29th.
Okay, so late fall 79.
Late fall 79. She was seen driving her Ford pickup truck.
Yeah.
And then she just didn't come home.
Just vanished.
Vanished. But here's the really critical part, based on the sources. Right before she disappeared, Helen had reportedly been in a series of explosive fights with her husband, Frank Holladay.
Explosive fights. That wording is strong. It doesn't sound like just arguing.
No, it implies something much more intense, possibly volatile, maybe even physical, though the sources don't specify that explicitly. But explosive is a powerful word.
Yeah. And that timing, right before she goes missing. That's a massive red flag, isn't it?
Absolutely. In any missing person case, especially involving spouses, a recent history of severe conflict like that, it immediately directs the investigation. And public perception, too,
Oh, for sure. People start talking.
Exactly. For the Hood County Sheriff's Office, this information about the fights would have been front and center. It provides an immediate, though unproven context, maybe even a motive for foul play.
So the focus naturally turns to Frank Holladay. Law enforcement gets involved. They launch an investigation.
Correct. The Hood County Sheriff's Office starts looking into it.
And Frank quickly becomes, as the sources state, a person of interest, which, given the explosive fights, isn't surprising.
Not at all. Standard procedure, really, in such circumstances.
But here's the frustrating part for everyone involved back then. Despite all that suspicion, despite him being the obvious person to look at,
They couldn't find anything.
nothing concrete, no definitive evidence linking Frank to her disappearance at that time. They couldn't find Helen. They couldn't find her truck. What did that mean for the investigation in 1979?
It meant they hit a wall, basically. They were working in the dark. Think about it. No body, no vehicle, which is a huge piece of missing evidence, and crucially, no direct proof of foul play.
Like a crime scene.
Right. No clear crime scene, no confession, no reliable witness saying they saw something happen. So you might have incredibly strong suspicions.
But suspicion isn't evidence.
Exactly. It's not enough to build a criminal case on. The investigation, after the initial searches, likely stalled. It shifts from a potential homicide case to just a baffling missing person file. Lots of questions, zero answers.
And that lack of physical evidence, especially the truck, brings us to the limitations of the time, 1979.
Yeah, it's easy to forget how different things were.
Totally. We think about investigations now. High-res sonar, underwater drones, DNA tech.
None of that was readily available, not in the way it is now.
So the sources say local authorities did search. They looked around roads, fields, waterways, standard stuff.
They would have done surface level searches, checked areas close to where she was last seen, or routes she might have taken.
But Lake Granbury, huge reservoir right there. It was just too big, too murky. The tech they had just wasn't up to the job for something like that.
Precisely. This is so key to why some cold cases stay cold, even when the answer is literally right there but hidden. Searching a lake that size and depth in 1979.
What would they even have used?
Very basic methods compared to today. Maybe dragging operations, literally dragging heavy hooks across the bottom in areas they suspected. Maybe some divers. But visibility in murky lake water is often near zero. You're searching by feel.
Wow. So finding a whole truck.
Would be incredibly difficult, especially if it settled into the silt even a little bit. It's essentially invisible to 1979 technology. It truly was, as the saying goes, a needle in a haystack. A very deep, very murky haystack.
So the case just...
Jolt. Effectively, yes. Leads dry up. The initial searches yield nothing. Without the truck, without Helen, it becomes one of those lingering, frustrating files.
And that leads to decades of silence, of just not knowing. You read the sources and you feel the weight of those 35 years. Can you even imagine that agony for the family?
It's almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah.
That constant state of limbo.
Her disappearance, it didn't just fade. It became, as the sources say, a local legend in Granbury. Part fascination, part unresolved grief.
And for the family, especially her daughters, they held on to hope. But it was also this relentless fight for answers, for closure, for 25 years.
What does that do to a family and to a town living with that kind of unresolved story for so long?
Oh, the toll is immense. For the family, it's this open wound. You can't fully grieve without knowing what happened. There's no funeral, no finality. Every birthday, every holiday. It's a reminder of the person who's missing and the unanswered questions.
Just hang in there.
Exactly. And for a community like Granbury, probably pretty close-knit back then, it's this unsettling shadow. It breeds suspicion, maybe mistrust. People wonder, they talk. It becomes part of the town's story, this dark, unresolved chapter.
And the rumors must have just kept going.
Absolutely. With no official answers, speculation fills the void.
And then another turn in the story. 1987. Frank Holladay, Helen's husband, the main person of interest. He dies.
Yes, 8 years after Helen disappeared.
The sources say he died, quote, taking any potential secrets about his wife's disappearance with him to the grave. That's stark.
It is. It's a critical moment.
So the one person everyone suspected, the one person who might have had answers, he's gone. What does that mean for the case, for any hope of finding out the truth or getting justice?
It means a door slammed shut. Permanently. If Frank Holladay knew anything, if he was involved, yeah, those answers are gone. Irretrievable from him anyway.
Which happens in cold cases, right? Time runs out on witnesses, on suspects.
All the time. It's one of the biggest challenges. It highlights this really bittersweet reality, even if the truth is eventually discovered, like finding the body.
You might never get the full story, the why.
Precisely. And justice, in the sense of a courtroom conviction, becomes impossible if the main suspect is deceased. You might find out what happened, broadly speaking, but the accountability aspect, the full explanation, that can be lost forever.
Leaving the family with partial answers.
Partial answers, yes. And maybe even more frustration in a way.
So Frank dies in 87, still no sign of Helen or the truck. How did the community keep grappling with this? What were the rumors saying now with him gone?
Well, his death probably didn't quiet the rumors. It might have even cemented them for some people. You know, the idea that he did know something and now it would never come out.
Right. It reinforces the suspicion in a way.
Exactly. And in the absence of any facts, speculation just runs wild. For decades, Granbury lived with these whispered theories. Was it an accident near the lake? Did she run away? Or was it foul play, likely involving Frank?
And without the truck or her body, all those theories could technically still be on the table.
They could. Each person could kind of choose the version they found most plausible or most unsettling. It becomes this narrative shaped by local talk, by suspicion, by the sheer lack of evidence. The mystery just deepened with time.
Until 2014, decades later. And something completely unexpected happens. The environment steps in.
Yeah, this is where the story takes that incredible turn.
Let's talk about the drought. Texas was hit hard, right? And Lake Granbury's water level
Dropped dramatically. We're talking historic lows in April 2014.
Yes.
This wasn't just a little bit lower. It was a significant prolonged drought that exposed parts of the lake bed that hadn't seen daylight in decades.
Since the lake was probably filled, maybe.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
It was an unprecedented environmental event. And crucially, it was the only thing that could have revealed what had been hidden for 35 years.
It wasn't an investigator finding a new lead or some new technology finally working. It was the water receding.
Purely nature. The earth, or the lake bed in this case, literally giving up its secret.
Okay, so picture this. April 2014. Lake levels are way down. A fisherman is out there.
Just a regular day, presumably.
And he spots something. What exactly did they find?
He saw part of a vehicle sticking out of the water. Just the cab, apparently. Something that definitely shouldn't have been there and wouldn't have been visible before the drought.
Must have been a shock.
Had to be. He calls the authorities. The Hood County Sheriff's Office responds. They pull this vehicle out of the muck.
And it's a Ford pickup.
A rusted Ford pickup truck, matching the description of Helen Holladay's truck from 1979.
After 35 years. Unbelievable.
But then, the truly grim discovery. Inside the truck, buried in silt and muck, human remains. Skeletal remains.
Oh.
And here's that critical detail the sources highlight.
Right.
The location. The truck wasn't right near the shore. It was found about 15 feet off the original 1979 shoreline,
Okay.
in what would have been roughly 15 feet of water back then.
15 feet out, 15 feet deep. That seems significant. Why?
Because it makes a simple accident, like just rolling off the bank, seem less likely. To get that far out into that depth of water, it suggests maybe more force or a more deliberate entry into the lake. It immediately raises questions about how it got there.
It pushes against the simple explanations.
Right. It adds another layer of suspicion to the whole discovery.
So they find the truck, they find remains. The next step is identification. How did they confirm it was Helen?
Well, thankfully, there was more evidence inside the truck. They found a purse right next to the skeleton.
Her purse.
Presumably hers, yes. And inside, there was identifying information. That immediately led authorities to strongly suspect the remains were Helen's.
But they needed definitive proof.
Absolutely. And this is where modern science comes in. Decades after she vanished, her daughters provided DNA sample.
DNA. Which wasn't really a tool back in 79 for this sort of thing.
Not at all. Not for identification like this. The comparison was made, and it was the definitive match. The remains were, without a doubt, Helen Ruth Holladay.
After 35 years, her daughters finally knew. What a moment that must have been. Bittersweet doesn't even seem to cover it.
No, it really doesn't. It's profound closure, the end of that agonizing not knowing. But it's also the confirmation of their worst fears. It's relief mixed with intense grief, finally having the answer, but it being the answer they likely dreaded.
They could finally bring her home, in a sense, give her a proper burial.
Yes, it provided that finality, that physical end to the search. But it also opened up a whole new set of urgent questions.
Right. So Helen is found in her truck in the lake. But how did she get there? Why? Was it an accident after all? Suicide? Or was it foul play, as suspected all along? What did the authorities say about the cause of death?
That's the lingering mystery. Because the remains had been submerged for 35 years, determining an official cause of death was extremely difficult, if not impossible.
Too much decomposition.
Exactly. Things like soft tissue damage or even some types of bone trauma might be completely gone or obscured by time and the elements. So the sources indicate an official cause of death was never determined.
No smoking gun like a bullet hole found in the skull or something.
Apparently not, or at least nothing definitive enough to be declared the official cause. However, while they couldn't say how she died officially,
The circumstances were incredibly suspicious.
overwhelmingly so. You have the timing after the explosive fights. You have the location of the truck 15 feet out, 15 feet deep. You have her remains inside. Taken together, it points very strongly towards foul play.
Even if they can't prove it forensically.
Even if they can't prove it forensically beyond a reasonable doubt for a court. The implication, based on the totality of the circumstances, is clear to investigators and, frankly, to anyone looking at the facts. It smells like foul play.
Okay, so with Helen found, let's revisit those theories that were floating around for decades. Now we have the crucial piece of evidence, her location.
Right, this allows for a much more informed reevaluation. Before the discovery, it was all speculation. Now, we have facts to weigh against the theories.
Let's start with accidental drowning again. We touched on why the location makes it less likely. What else argues against it now?
Well, the primary thing, beyond the specific location in the lake, remains the context. Those explosive fights right before she vanished. It just casts such a dark cloud over the idea of simple, tragic accident.
It provides a potential alternative explanation that's hard to ignore.
Exactly. And while accidents do happen, for her to end up that far out in that depth combined with the marital strife, it makes the accident theory feel, as the sources say, highly unlikely. Possible, maybe. Plausible, much less so now.
Okay, what about the theory that she planned her disappearance, decided to leave her life behind?
That one is completely off the table now.
Right, because they found her.
They found her remains inside her truck at the bottom of the lake. That definitively proves she didn't just walk away and start a new life somewhere else.
Yeah.
That theory, which might have offered a sliver of hope to some for years, is tragically refuted by the discovery.
So that leaves us squarely with the foul play theory. The sources call it the most plausible. Let's lay out the evidence supporting it again, now that we have the full picture.
Okay, the evidence piles up circumstantially. 1. The timing. Disappearing immediately after documented explosive fights with her husband. That's classic.
Motive, potentially, opportunity.
Exactly. 2. The location and condition of the discovery. Her body inside her truck, submerged 15 feet from the original shore in 15 feet of water. Highly suspicious circumstances, suggesting deliberate placement rather than an accident.
Points away from a simple drive-off.
Strongly points away from it. 3. The lack of any other credible explanation. Accident seems unlikely. Planned disappearance is impossible. Foul play becomes the most logical conclusion, fitting all the known facts.
But, and this is the
huge but, is the lack of definitive proof of the crime itself.
meaning.
Meaning, without a confession, without a direct witness seeing foul play occur, and without a clear forensic cause of death confirming homicide, like evidence of strangulation, stabbing, shooting, blunt force trauma, you can't prove it in court.
Even though it seems obvious.
Even though the circumstantial evidence is incredibly strong, our legal system requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Suspicion, however strong, isn't enough for a conviction.
And the prime suspect, Frank Holladay.
Died in 1987. So even if they had found enough evidence later, prosecution was impossible. The person most likely to have the answers, the person who faced the most suspicion, was gone.
So it's this incredibly frustrating situation. The evidence points one way, overwhelmingly.
But the path to legal justice is blocked by time, by the condition of the remains, and by the death of the person of interest.
It leaves you with a conclusion, but not a conviction, a resolution, but not necessarily full justice.
Precisely. It underscores the immense difficulty of solving cold cases, especially when key evidence is lost to time or the elements, and key individuals are no longer around. You can find some truth, but maybe not the whole truth, and certainly not always legal accountability.
Thinking about Helen's story beyond just the facts, it really highlights the impact these unsolved cases have, doesn't it, on families, on communities?
Oh, absolutely. It's a powerful reminder. This wasn't just a news story. It was decades of pain and uncertainty for her daughters, her family.
The sources mention their relentless pursuit of justice, fighting against a system they felt failed them.
And you can understand why they felt that way. For 35 years, their mother was just gone. No answers, no trace. Their persistence, their refusal to let her be forgotten is incredible. It really speaks to that deep human need for truth, for closure, no matter how long it takes.
And the case became part of Granbury's identity almost, this local legend, the shadow.
Yeah, it embeds itself in the collective memory of a place, a constant reminder of something unresolved, something dark that happened there.
Which brings us back to that idea of closure. The discovery in 2014 brought answers, but it was, as the sources say, heartbreaking. Talk about bittersweet.
It's the perfect word for it. Closure isn't always neat. It's the end of the terrible uncertainty, which is a relief. But it's also the confirmation of a tragic reality.
You finally know what happened, broadly speaking, and where she was.
Right. The what and where are resolved, but the why and the how specifically, those remain elusive, especially with Frank Holladay gone. So the family gets the truth, they can finally grieve properly, have a burial.
But they don't get the full story or the accountability they might have sought in court.
Exactly. It fulfills that need for truth, but maybe not the need for justice in a legal sense. It's a complex emotional resolution.
And it's just staggering that the key came from nature itself, the drought.
It really is. It makes you think differently about how these things get solved sometimes.
What does it tell us? That sometimes the evidence is just waiting, hidden by the environment.
I think so. It shows that sometimes the barrier isn't human error or lack of trying. It's literally the physical world concealing the evidence. A lake level drops, a field erodes, an earthquake shifts things, and secrets emerge.
The earth reveals its secrets, as the sources put it.
It's a powerful idea. It highlights how environmental factors, completely outside the investigation itself, can be the deciding factor in solving decades-old mysteries. It's humbling, in a way.
So we've walked through this whole story based on the sources. We have Helen, the troubled marriage, the disappearance, the long silence, the suspicion, Frank's death, the drought, the discovery.
A long and winding road to a partial truth.
And we're left with this strong implication of foul play, but no definitive proof, no confession, no conviction. The why remains elusive. What's the big takeaway here? What does Helen's story teach us about truth and justice in these old cases?
I think the most poignant takeaway is about the nature of truth itself in these situations. We see these conflicting threads. A simple missing person case versus what strongly appears to be a homicide. A family's desperate, decades-long search versus a truth lying silent, just feet underwater.
And the hope for answers versus the reality that some answers die with people.
Exactly. It's a meditation on that fight for closure, the enduring hope that questions can be answered even after decades. But it's also a very sobering reminder that the ultimate why, the motive, the precise actions, the final moments might remain forever out of reach.
Especially when the person most likely responsible is gone. The specific why of Helen Holladay's death likely died with Frank Holladay in 1987.
That seems the most probable conclusion, based on everything we know. It leaves us with a resolved mystery. In one sense, we know where she was, but her unresolved crime in another. It's a powerful story about the limits of discovery and the enduring pain of unanswered questions, even when a body is found.
The case of Helen Ruth Holladay. A mystery that echoed through a Texas town for 35 years. Suspicion, silence, and a family clinging to hope. The discovery in Lake Granbury brought answers, but not all of them. It brought Helen home, but it couldn't reveal the full story of how she got there, or definitively why. A heartbreaking resolution, delivered by nature itself. What are your thoughts on Helen's case? Does finding her provide a sense of closure, or does the lingering question of why leave you unsatisfied? We'd love to hear what you think. Join the conversation on our social media platforms using hashtag Threads of Truth and hashtag Helen Ruth Holladay.
Yeah, hearing listener perspectives on these complex situations is always fascinating. It adds another layer to understanding the impact of these stories.
In our next exploration, we'll unravel one of America's most legendary unsolved cases, the daring 1971 airplane hijacking by a man known only as D.B. Cooper, and the decades of mystery that followed.
Oh, that's a classic. So few clues, so many theories. A completely different kind of cold case puzzle.
It should be fascinating. Thank you for joining us on Threads of Truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your support helps us keep exploring these stories, searching for answers one thread at a time.